Hi all, welcome to the DynamicsCon, and let's start with a brief introduction for me. Uh, my name is Saurav Dhyani, and I'm working with Dynamics Nav or Business Central from last 10 years. I'm a Microsoft MVP from 2014. Currently, I'm working with Archpoint as Upgrade Technical Futurist. Uh, with that role, my accountabilities are researching methods to make upgrades easier and efficient for our customers, and also learn about what's changing in the product in future versions to help our customers with the upgrade. We'll be going through preparation for your Business Central upgrade and how it is different than any other upgrade you have done. So this in this session, we'll start with understanding why this upgrade is unique and why it is different from any other upgrade that you have done in the past. Then I'll explain you the different paths for upgrading to the latest and greatest version of the product. And then follow up, we'll discuss about what challenges you may face in your next upgrade. And we'll discuss about preparation step for partners as well as for customers. And at the end, we'll have a summary of what we discussed today. So let's start. So we all have experienced upgrade either as customers or partners in past, but this upgrade to Business Central is a little bit different than any other upgrades that we have done in Dynamics Nav. Legacy upgrades that we have done in Dynamics Nav were only around custom code, and the data migration was handled by Microsoft. With this upgrade to Business Central, the upgrades are a little bit different. And the reason is because the programming language or the way the custom code fits in with your Business Central environment is a little bit different. So all your custom code that is written in Dynamics Nav environment need to be rewritten using events in CAL. And then that custom code need to be converted as an extension in your Business Central database. At the same time, the custom data upgrade, which was a non-event in the past, will have an impact with this change. And because the table schema behind the scene are changing with the AL, and that'll cause some problems. But if we take proper steps to the Business Central journey, that journey can be as smooth as it can be. So let's see how we should approach this upgrade to Business Central. So the first thing that I'll say is if you are not on Business Central 14, then the first thing that you need to do is upgrade to Business Central 14 now. And you may ask why Business Central 14 and not Business Central 15 or 16, which are available as the latest version today. And there are certain reasons behind it. One of them is you can upgrade to Business Central 14 from any version of Dynamics Nav. And there's an upgrade path provided by Microsoft. For partners, there are auto merge tools that can make the custom merge simple enough till Business Central 14 CAL. And once you are on Business Central 14, then is the time where you future-proof your code so that it aligns to the Microsoft strategy with the AL environment. At the same time, if we keep aside all technical challenges or the changes that are happening, users also need to transition from the role tailor client to the modern client. With Business Central 14 and higher, there's a modern client, which some people also call as web client. So during this session, we'll talk about these questions, how you prepare for future, what things you need to take care, what are best practices that you need to follow with these upgrades. So let's talk about the upgrade path. As in, this is one of the most common questions that we keep on hearing on the community, that can I upgrade to Business Central if I'm on a very low version of Dynamics Nav, and how many upgrades I'll have to do to reach there. But let's take an example that you want to upgrade to the latest and greatest version, which is Business Central 16 as of today, when we are recording this. And you can upgrade from any version, and I'll explain the number of paths or steps that you'll have to take from the first version that I started from, which is some or the last version that I had upgraded to, which is from 2.6. So if you're using Business Central 15 or Business Central 14, then there is one single jump to upgrade to Business Central 16, and the upgrade path is provided by Microsoft. And if you are on Business Central 14 and using extension, then extension should have their own upgrade path. But let's suppose you are not there on Business Central 14 and you are in any of these versions, which is NAV 2015, 16, 17, 18, or Business Central 13, then being on these versions just adds one more layer of the migration, and you can reach to Business Central 16 in 2 steps. If you're not in NAV 2015, then and you are on 2013, 2013 R2 or 2009 stack or SP1 or R2, it just add one more layer to upgrade to Business Central 16. And there is a slight detour that customers who are on 2013 and 2013 R2 can take to upgrade, which is they can upgrade directly to 2018 and then follow up the ladder to Business Central 16. And while I'm talking about data upgrade, it's only about on-prem. So if you're not even there and using nav 4, 5, or 3.7, it just add one more layer of migration. And if you're below, then like 2.6 to 3.6, that add one more layer. When I talk about number of steps, that doesn't mean that these many upgrades you'll have to do. These are just steps that your partner will be performing while upgrading you to the latest and greatest version. So all these steps can be performed in one single upgrade. And as I said earlier, I would like everybody to be here on Business Central 14 first and then plan for the future upgrades. So we have talked about on-prem, and let's assume that you want to go to SaaS, how that journey differentiate from on-prem. So for SaaS, Microsoft provides a data replication process, which is a process which securely migrate your data from your on-premises SQL Server instance to the Business Central online tenant. So the data is migrated between 2 systems on a per table basis, and success and failures are tracked by each table. So if a table fails during migration, the replication will not stop. It will proceed and will mark that table as failure, and you can fix the issues which are there on your on-prem environment, and the replication process will pick that table when it runs next time. So as of today, you can use Business Central 16, Business Central 15, or Business Central 14 to directly migrate or replicate your data to the SaaS environment. The initial data migration can vary based on depending factors, how much time it takes, and the major factors are amount of data that you have and where your SQL Server or SQL database is residing. Is it on premises or is it on Azure? Things to note here is the data is only replicated from on-premises to SaaS. It doesn't, it's not a bi-directional data replication process. So till the point the whole database is replicated, no user should have access to the SaaS environment. And while replication is happening, user can still use their on-premise environment. It's not like upgrade on on-prem where everybody need to be disconnected. This replication keep on happening and user can keep on working, and the data will keep on replicating to SaaS as the new data get added, modified, or deleted. So you'll not have to worry about it. From the timeline perspective, as I said earlier, it depends on how big is your database and where is your SQL Server is placed. But you don't have to worry about it. It takes that data seamlessly to SaaS, and you can check the status from your on-prem environment that how much data has been replicated. So let's talk about what we said earlier about upgrading to Business Central 14, because that's a key decision or the majority of your steps will happen in Business Central 14 before you plan your next upgrade to the AL environment. So People always ask this question, that why upgrade to Business Central 14 when there is Business Central 15 and higher versions are available for on-prem. So there are certain factors, and the first factor, or the major factor that we see as partner, is ISV readiness. So if you're using an ISV or an add-on on premises, then one major challenge that you might face is ISV readiness. And there are only two things that you will need from ISV to be able to upgrade to a AL environment. One is their extension should be ready for AL, which quite a few ISVs are ready with that. But then the other important thing is around your data, which is the data upgrade path for that ISV tables and fields in your database to the AL world. So that can be one of the challenge that may stop you on Business Central 14. The other major challenge that you'll see is around your customization and the .NET references if you have. So custom code is a factor, but it's not a blocker. And when I say this, I mean that if customers and partner work together to rewrite the custom code which is not supported in the AL world, then it'll take some time to align that code to the new programming language. And your partner can help you, but as a business, you need to explain them what this custom process does so that they are able to rewrite that into the new programming language. When we talk about .NET or control add-ins that you have in on-prem, or you use an assembly on your on-premises environment, .NETs are not supported in Business Central Online version. Even if you are not planning for your upgrade to SaaS or Business Central Online now, I would still recommend to replace those .NET with the future-proof coding standard which are available with AL, so that in future, if you plan to move to SaaS, you don't have to worry about those .NET control add-ins. Last but not least is the SQL changes. And I know the SQL is very common for most of the Dynamics Nav customer, and it can act as a blocker going forward. So you need to start switching those reports, views that you have on SQL Server to the Business Central AL environment. And even on-prem, I would not recommend to use SQL Server, as the design of the table behind the scene in SQL Server is completely changed. And just to give you an idea about it, these are the two different screenshot from databases from Dynamics Nav 14, which is Business Central 14, and Business Central 15. And if you see, each table name is appended with a GUID, and this GUID is for the app ID, which, because the base Microsoft code is also an app in Business Central 15 and higher. And why I'm saying that it is not recommended to use SQL queries in on-prem environment, if you see these highlighted ones where I highlighted in red, there are two additional table with name customer, which are actually either partner extension or a ISV extension that you might be using. So earlier in your older versions, where you can check all the fields in this customer table, now you will have to create kind of a join to see that data. And in your next upgrade, that query that you're writing may break because the extension ID may change. So try to move these SQL customization that you have with the Dynamics Nav or Business Central coding standard, so that you don't face this challenge. Now we have talked about challenges. Let's talk about what preparation we should do as partners and you should do as customer to make this journey smoother. So first we'll talk about what preparation steps are needed for the partners. So now, as we understand that we should upgrade to Business Central 14, let's talk about changes that partners should do for preparing their customers for the future. I have grouped them into three different areas. The property changes, which is the prefixing and suffixing, application area tagging, and users category. We'll go into details about it. Then data changes that you'll have to do in Business Central 14, which is around permission sets, profiles, and user personalization. And then last but not least is the code changes that you'll have to do as partners for your customers. So these steps are additional step then merging and migrating your data to Business Central 14. So, and using these preparation step, your future journey to AL will be lot more simpler. So let's talk about the property changes first. The first one in the list is prefix or suffix. So if you haven't noticed it in Business Central AL programming language, each object name or each field name should have a suffix or a prefix added to that. And the rule applies for all objects, including table extension and page extension, each that you add. For users, you can change the caption of those fields so they don't see that prefix and suffix. And a prefix or a suffix is a 3-character word that you need to register with Microsoft as a partner using this email ID here, d365val@microsoft.com. And the reason of registering that prefix or suffix is that if there is a conflict arises, then the partner who have registered it always wins that, and the other will have to change their extension to solve that issue. So let's understand what that issue is. Let's suppose there are two apps, one from a app A and app B from two different ISVs, or maybe one from an ISV and one from the partner. And both are trying to add one field, similar field for different reasoning, called creation date on the customer table. Now, if you see here, the customer table is extended and a field creation date is added by app A. But if the app B developer also tries to add a new field at a different ID, but with the same name, we all know that this will cause a conflict and the app B will never get installed. So the way the prefix and suffix help is in every field that you add your prefix or suffix, and that way your field or your table or any other object become unique to your extension and doesn't conflict with any other extension that is available for Business Central. It's not only for SaaS, you should start using it as partners on-prem also for all PTEs. Sorry, PTE means pertinent extensions that you're building. The second thing that you'll have to do on the property changes is application area tagging. And application area represent a feature that system provides ability to define different user interfaces. And the way it works is that application area is mapped to controls and fields on the pages and reports. So this property only applies for pages and reports, and it applies at the page level, field level, part and action level, and in the same way in report objects, request page and field control. So it's there are valid values as a text string, and if you want a control or a field visible everywhere, then the property value is all that you need to assign. If you don't assign the application area tagging in the modern client, you'll not be able to see that object or that field. So you can start doing it in Business Central 14 as a property in your CL environment so that your journey towards future becomes simpler with tagged as application area all. Other than this, let's talk about users category, which is another property which is important for the modern client. So if you have used the modern Business Central modern client, the search is actually used by is done using the tell me feature in the modern client, which lets user to find objects that are available in the tenant. So when you add a page or a report, which and you want to make that searchable or discoverable in the tell me feature, so to make it searchable, you need to add the users category in your extension. So as we are talking about what steps you will do after your upgrade to Business Central 14, this is one other setting that you can set in your Business Central 14 CL environment, where you can set the users category on pages and reports so that they are searchable when you convert your custom code to extension for Business Central 15 and higher. Now, if you see the options which are available in the users category, they are same as they used to be in the menu suite. So you can consider users category as a replacement of the menu suite in the dynamic snap world. So let's move ahead and talk about the data changes. So the first data change that I would like to talk about is the permission sets and permission. For all these years, we have been modifying permission that comes with Microsoft and to append our custom objects. And we sometimes also change those permissions based on how our business needs it. Starting Business Central 13 and higher, the way the permissions are stored is a little bit changed. So now the base permissions, which is permission and permission set table, are used to store only base Microsoft permission, and they are then tagged as system. For all custom permissions and for all extension permission, they are stored in a different table called tenant permission and tenant permission set because they are unique to your tenant. So in your Business Central 14, you can start splitting out those permission and storing them as user defined as the first step, and which in future will then be converted to extension permission. So when you open your permission set page in your Business Central 14, you see something like this in new type field, which have three different options: user defined, extension, and system. So the permission which are tagged as extension are actually bind to an extension code, and they get added automatically when you install that extension into the customer tenant. And user defined permissions are the permission that are created by users to to fit the requirement for the user's access. So in your Business Central 14, you can pull those custom permission modification in Microsoft and add them as user defined permission. And then in future, you can export them and add it into the extension that you're building for your customer. Now, going forward is the profiles, where there is a little bit of bad news, where the the legacy XML format, which is used to store profiles and profile data in the role tailor client, is being discontinued starting Business Central 14 modern client only. So while upgrading your database, any legacy profile, just the profile name, will remain available, but the customization that you have done on that profile, like hidden some pages, hidden some actions or report, they will be discarded because they were stored in an XML format, which is not supported with the modern client. So legacy profile configuration created into the earlier version, which is the role tailor client version, is not compatible with Business Central 2019 release wave 2 and higher. So this data need to be regenerated, and with Business Central 15 and higher, the configuration mode that used to be there in role tailor client is available in the modern client. So you can reconfigure your profiles the way you want it, and it'll make that journey smoother. As a partner, you can also code those profiles if required with the new object that is available with AL programming language called profiles. So with that, what happens is your profiles are actually part of your code and will be easy to upgrade going forward. Users can still customize the base Microsoft profile using the profile extension, which is available at the design level. So it makes it easier, but whatever is coming from legacy will be dropped and you'll have to recreate them. As we talked about the profiles, let's talk about the another thing that's kind of going to change in Business Central is user personalization. All the legacy user personalization which are done in role tailor client uh, will need to be dropped as you switch to the modern client, and the reasons are same, because it used to be stored as XML, which is going to change in modern client. And when you upgrade your data to Business Central 14 and higher versions, the XML user personalization that you have done in the role tailor client are actually tagged as the legacy personalization. So you actually will have to delete anything legacy before you want to do user personalization in the modern client. So that's one more thing that you need to be aware of as you are upgrading and planning for your next upgrade to Business Central 15 and higher, that you'll have to rework on these areas. So now let's talk about some other factors that partners need to take care as they go forward. And the first thing that I'll talk about is test driven development. So test driven development is a software development process that relies on a repetition of very short development cycle, where you build a certain customization and write a test around that, and then you test that functionality using that automated test. This is opposed to software development that allows code to be added that not proven to meet the requirements. So you actually write a piece of code, and before writing that piece of code, you actually write test that supports that, so that you can automatically test it without a user involvement. In future, either on-prem or SaaS with extension model, upgrades will be non-event in future, but there will be breaking changes, because at the same time, while your extension are not will not get changed as you upgrade to the future versions, Microsoft is also changing how things work in the base Microsoft code. They are also breaking one big app into logical pieces, and you would have seen those instances as the product is moving ahead. And because of those changes, maybe your extension will break. But then, to test those breaking changes, you don't want a user to go through the whole tedious testing cycle. And that's where test driven development comes into picture, because you can test all the customs that you have done for your customer using the automated test. So that becomes one of the key factor once you move into the AL world, by programming and using test driven development with AL programming. The other thing that I've seen in recent time with some of the partners is that they set show my code as false in their pertinent extension. Now, we as a partner need to understand that pertinent extensions are actually owned by customer and not by partner. If you are an ISV and building an app which supports multiple customer and you own that, then setting show my code to false make sense, because it's a ISV that it should not have access, code should not have access to the customer, or in some cases even to the partners. But for pertinent extension, when you are building it for your customers, you need to make sure that show my code is true, so that customer can download the source code if they want and maintain in their own source control. Last but not least, as you are talking about uh, what preparation step in Business Central 14, as we quickly touched based on it in the earlier slide, you need to start preparation of your cal to al data migration for your custom tables and custom field in the base Microsoft tables. Now, Microsoft have given us paths from Business Central 14 to Business Central 16, with an assumption that your schema on CAL and AL matches exactly. So to match your schema, if you have to do any rewrites or rework on your code, I would suggest to do that in CAL Word, because it's more easier and it is more flexible to do it in CAL Word, because of the sync methods that are available on the CL mode, where you can move the table pretty easily or fields easily to a different number series. So do your refactoring and renumbering in CAL. And once your CAL schema matches to your AL schema, at that point, you're ready to take that jump from Business Central 14 to higher versions. So now let's talk about customers. As in, we have talked about all these changes that partners will have to do or change their processes as they go forward. And it's not only customer that will have to change something, partners are also changing it. So the first thing that I would say is the source control management. So if you are a customer who would like to track and manage changes to your code. Then start thinking about the source control management software that you want to use. If you have in-house developers, then either invite your partner to your source control and keep control of your source code that has been changed for you, or if or the other way around is you as your partner can invite your in-house developer to code in one single source control, so that all the changes that your in-house developer and your partner are doing are in sync, and they align to how they should be stored. Source control management also becomes important because the way the code changes were done in Dynamics Nav is different than how they are done in the Business Central world. So in Dynamics Nav, those changes were stored inside your database as an object, and you can export them at any time as form or text, save them, and there were different methods that customers using to maintain their source control. But with AL, all these code changes that your partners will be doing or your in-house developer will be doing will be set of text file and will actually require a source control management software to save them. Now, the second thing, which is a pretty debatable topic, is which route you want to go. Do you want to go with one single extension for all your customization that you have, or you want to have multiple extension for the customization that you have in your database? Now, this decision you will have to take as customer, and then discuss it with the partner how you want to plan it and which model fits to your business most. There are benefits and disadvantage of either or methods. uh, I would prefer choosing multiple extension rather than one single extension, because that's the model that Microsoft is proposing for extension, that you should have small reusable extension, so that if you want to turn off a certain feature, you can just uninstall that particular feature or that extension from your source code. So it's up to you and your partner. So discuss it with your partner and finalize which method you want to use going forward. And this decision you'll take on Business Central 14. The last is you need to start engaging your partner. Like in past, the upgrades were done more or less at the partner end. The heavy lifting was done by the partner, but they will merge your code, and once the code merging report upgrades and everything is complete, they'll ask access to your test server, do a data migration, and you will be up and running with the new upgraded version. But with Business Central 14, there are things that you need to consider and consult your partner about, like how many extension you prefer, which model you want to go, and are there any rewrites that partner is finding that will require to make your journey smoother for the future. Are there any customs which will cause problems to your upgrade journey to SaaS or Business Central 15 or higher? So all this will happen between customer and partner, and you need to get into a discussion with your partner to help that journey to make it easier. The other factor, as I said earlier, is ISV readiness. And for your next upgrade, other than your custom code, the ISV plays a very important role, and you need to check with them about their availability of their extension and the data upgrade path. Otherwise, that can be a huge blocker from your Business Central 14 to any higher version that is available. So let's go through the summary of what we discussed today. As I said earlier, if you are not on Business Central 14, upgrade to Business Central 14 now. Review your ISV add-ons. Are they available as an extension? And if they are, do they have an upgrade path to CAL and AL? And that becomes important as we understand that your data is important and it's critical to your business. So until and unless an ISV don't have an upgrade path from CAL to AL, that actually becomes a blocker even if they have an extension available. Refactor all your custom code using events in Business Central 14. And start doing it into smaller pieces and get them deployed into the production as they are tested. And once they get mature and you are, you have tested it, then your partner can convert them into extension even in business central 14. Future proof your two areas, which is SQL queries and .NET. I know this can be a little bit hard because we have so many SQL queries, and we have seen customers who uses .NET add-ins pretty aggressively. But there are ways to handle .NET into AL. Start switching those as you are in Business Central 14. Try to adopt methodology that Microsoft is proposing to replace .NET. And for SQL queries, start looking at alternate solutions like APIs. You have queries in Dynamics Nav or Business Central Word. Start finding alternate, because otherwise this will become a problem as you go forward. Now, as I said earlier, decide the methodology that you want to use, one or multiple extension, and I'll explain you maybe in a minute about that. Then, if possible, I would recommend use test-driven development, and it's kind of an investment to your future, so that next time when you upgrade, you don't have to go through a long testing cycle, because most of the code is kind of tested using automated test. Every code you write as partners, you should have a associated test around it, so that in future you don't have to users don't have to test that feature manually. I'm not saying it will replace the manual testing that customer does, but it can reduce that testing that user does. For customers, source control, learn about it, decide which one you want to use. Do you actually need it, or do you want to work with your partner and let them maintain your source code? It's up to you. Decide that. Now let's talk about how that upgrade journey will look like, and it'll look like something like this, where you have a CAL environment with base Microsoft code, and then you have ISVs, and then you have custom. This is a typical Dynamics Nav environment that we have. So the first thing is that you'll upgrade to Business Central 14. And once you upgrade to Business Central 14, this will look something like this as the first diagram. And then eventually you need to, as I said earlier, be in touch with your partner and start using the methods that are available. And the first thing that I'll kind of move out to extension is your ISVs, and because they own that source code, and they should be ready with the extension. And if they are ready with the extension, then move those ISV to extension in Business Central 14. At that point, what left in your Dynamics Nav database is the base Microsoft code and your customization. At this point, your partner can come and start analyzing and converting your base Microsoft custom code into events. And once that is converted to events, then converting them into logical AL extension, and move that data also to the AL environment in Business Central 14. At that point, once you are here where your CAL have only base Microsoft, that's the point when you're ready for your Business Central 15 or 16 upgrades. There may be some situation which cannot be converted to can be pulled out and converted to extension in Business Central 14, but they are available in Business Central 16 and higher. And one of them is option field, which in Business Central 16, most of them are already converted to enums, but that data can just be left as custom here and can be handled in the migration to Business Central 16. So do as much as you can the cleanup and the converting to extension in Business Central 14, so that your journey towards future is easier. Here are some references of the topics that we discussed today about prefixing, suffixing, application area, users category, permission set, profiles, and data replication that we talked about. And these all are from MSDN. You can read more about it there. And if you have questions, here are my contact details. You can reach out to me on my email or any of the social media handles which are here. And thank you DynamicsCon for me being a presenter and giving me this opportunity to present with you. So if you have more questions, join me in the conference chat and I'll be happy to answer your questions.